Hi there. This is probably the most important tutorial I can give you because it has to do with the render settings. Now, certainly when you are working on an assignment with a couple of people, this is going to be important because you need to have the same kind of material. So I'm going to briefly walk through the render settings. And let's see, we got the output, we got save, we got multipass, anti-aliasing options. Well, stereoscopics is really not that important for most of my tutorials, so I'm going to skip that. Um, let's start with this one, options menu. Here you see the ray depth. Funny because that's my name. But no, this is actually the number of calculations the render engine will run with calculating your images. So you got your transparency, your reflection, your refraction, shadows. If you don't use any of these, flick them off. If you only use shadows and you only have solid objects with no reflection or refraction or transparency, even if it's an alpha channel, you don't use alpha channels, then just turn them off. It will speed up your render. Now, you got default lights. I usually leave that on, but when you use lights yourself, that you introduce yourself, this can be turned off. However, if you animate the lights and you make the light source an intensity 0, then you basically switch your light off. So default light will come on in those instances. Show texture errors, I'll leave that on. Volumetric lighting, you can switch it off if you don't use it. Same goes for subpolygon displacement and post-render effects. So it's important to go through this with each render that you make. Now, anti-aliasing, I usually have that at best. Could be that you could use geometry. Geometry will only anti-alias the edges of the geometry itself and will not do anything to the textures and what have you. So usually that's on best. If you want to speed up the render, put the max level down, for instance, to 2x2, but test it. Test if your render still looks okay. Now, for the filter, if I make animations, I use Mitchell. Mitchell is the name of an old movie camera brand, and it works for me. But basically, you can pick something else from the list. Quite often, gauze is used for animation, but I just like Mitchell. Let's see, multipass. Only use it when you actually use multipass. So you're basically turning your output in a set of layers or different passes of, for instance, reflection. If you want to render that separately, and for instance use After Effects to composite the whole thing. Save. Don't forget to put an output path in file. Thank you very much. When you use an alpha channel, you're probably compositing. So when you're compositing, please turn on straight alpha, because this will prevent sort of like leaky mask files. Leaky means that if you don't turn this on, your image file will be exactly the same size as your alpha channel that you're generating. With straight alpha, your alpha will be anti-aliased, but your image channel that's in front of it won't. It will actually be slightly larger. Now, if you use the alpha in a compositing software like After Effects, you will see that you won't get that gray edge around objects that are masked out by the alpha channel. So that's really useful. And I know that in post-production houses, they will actually demand that you do that. Now, I usually rendering a QuickTime movie. Um, Again, I'm assuming that you're making animations, and just click on the options. I use compression type animation because you can still generate an alpha, and not all of these will generate an alpha channel. You will still render it, but it won't be in the image. So I'll take it that you use animation. If not, you can put on MPEG 4 or whatever. Sometimes it's handy to actually render in stills. If you're not sure that the render is gonna cut off somewhere and you want to pick up where you left off, then just render it in PNG or something like that, and just put the compression method to the best kind there is, millions of colors, etc., etc. Images per second, 25. We live in Europe, so we gotta have to do 25 frames per second. Take care of this, because this will actually also be in, I have to click this away. This will also be in your render settings, sorry, your project settings, and put that 25 frames per second in. It will also be in your output, but we'll get to that in a second. So we were here in the compression thing. The only thing you need to know when you render images, and I'm just going to take JPEG, then what you have here is your name destination. And you see here name and then 0000. Just to be safe, put a dot in between the name and the number of the frame. This is called padding, and it's just easier. You know for sure that your program, whatever program you're using, will understand that the number is not part of the name, but is actually the number of the frame. Now let's see, output. Pick an output, stick with it. This is fairly small for video resolution. The one other thing that is important is that you, by default, work with square pixels. That's your aspect ratio right here. It says square. Now this is a preset. And of course, here's your frame range. Don't forget to put the right numbers here. And the frame step, oh, please don't touch it. I had so much trouble with it. You can put it up higher. You can't put it on a fraction. And it will actually tell you with what kind of increment it will go through this set of frames, through the frame range. Fields, we're not working in video, just keep it at none, and the other programs at progressive scan. That will give you the best results. Now, if you have done all that and you actually set your frame rate correctly here too, oh, by the way, the frame rate, there's another frame rate here, so keep that all the same number, 25, and you can actually save an empty file. Now this is filled with some crap I was making, but actually save that into your Cinema 4D folder under the title New. Now each time that you start a new scene, you will get the exact same render settings, not the default render settings with the 75 frames and the 30 frames per second, but you'll get your own set of render settings. Now, if you're working together on an assignment in a small group, make sure everybody has the same file. You can basically exchange that. Actually, one person makes an empty file with render settings and exchanges that throughout the group.